Learn to recognize God in the small things. The Bible tells us in Luke 16:10 that he who is faithful in the little will be, of course, as faithful in the much. Because if you are unfaithful in the little, there is a likelihood, it is not a certainty, but there is a big possibility that you will be unfaithful as well in the much. So let's learn to recognize God in the small miracles, because there are miracles that happen in our lives every day. But as believers, we have a tendency of always waiting for the spectacular miracle, for the big miracle, for us to acknowledge the power of God. To acknowledge the involvement really of God. But let me remind you that even breathing is a miracle. And there are those things, of course, that we take for granted until they are taken away. Of course, there are times that have happened, and of course they've reminded you how precious that small thing that you took for granted was. Let me talk about the time that we were under the pandemic, COVID-19. People started buying oxygen, and irrespective of how much they bought, it wasn't enough to keep them alive. So the one that we are getting freely tells you how much, really, how priceless it is for you to be breathing normally with normal lungs. That's how priceless it is. So let's always remember to recognize God in the small things. Well, it could be in your education, perhaps in your career, perhaps in your business. Well, in your business, things, they might not be moving as you expected or as you hoped God would make them move. Well, there is a neighbor that is making perhaps $1 million every day, and you're making 10,000 every day. It is that merry heart, is that grateful heart that will attract $1 million also to come. Because if you are grumbling and complaining, you'll actually forget that God is providing. You'll actually forget that God is doing something. There is someone who is not earning 10,000, but you are earning that much. So complaining and not recognizing God in that small one, it will actually make you miss the big miracle. Perhaps you wanted children, and perhaps you have one. That one you have is a miracle already. Maybe you wanted your child to walk at 2, and they are not walking at 2. It does not change the fact that it was a miracle for you to get that child. So you need always to thank God that the child you wanted, you received. The walking will come. Perhaps it could be in your career. You wanted a master's, and maybe right now you are at diploma. Let that not make you forget that there